Hello people, this is Duncan again at Free as an Eagle. Pardon my voice, it's a little wretched today. I'm still recovering from a COVID outbreak when I was on vacation. Not greatly timed, except at least I was on a lake, so it was a nice place to be miserable, if one must. So anyway, today we came back in last night. I had enough wherewithal and caffeine to make the drive. And I wanted to take a spin up to the project this morning simply because we'd had a bunch of fairly severe storms sweep through and they did a lot of damage in town, ripped up trees by the roots and all kinds of groovy stuff. But fortunately, everything up here held. Apparently it didn't do anything but rain a bit up here. So anyway, I came up this morning to check things out and do a little light work. Not feeling up to par, but I don't want to sit around doing nothing. So I'll just show you what I did this morning. I just came up a few hours ago. I have my wife's car because my daughter needed mine. She'd had a mishap a couple of weeks ago, and I loaned her mine for a little bit of time. So we're looking at the rafter frame that we had started and got a nice start on actually before we left. And then today, to do something light that needed to be continued, is to do a little bit of foam work. And so this foam is I luckily had three of these big 4x8 sheets left when we did the initial foaming of the foundation underneath, which went up from the footings to about the green plates. But that leaves a spot that's always a little bit tricky when you're dealing with a basement. In fact, a lot of houses, they'll finish a basement or they'll do things to a house, and that little part on the outside perimeter of a joist box can often be overlooked, or it's something where you got to stuff insulation in later. Even if you've insulated walls that you've built, you've got to fill that space or you have a little bit of a cold spot. So anyway, my answer to that was to take some of the leftover foam board. I took a piece and cut it into pieces. Now typically because these were laid out 24 on center because of the size of these rafters, it left a bay width of 22.5. So that's 24 less the inch and a half to account for the rafters. So I took a little handsaw, and it's actually very, very adequate for cutting foam. There's a decent little handsaw. So I used a handsaw and a T-square and a tape and cut these pieces. So what I did is just screwed some of them in if they were slightly loose fitting. Most of them I had to kind of tap in there and force them in. But this fills that space between the wall, the top of the wall and the basement and the joist box. And very typically later people will stuff fiberglass in from the inside down in the basement, but I've never liked that because if you have any moisture issues at all, fiberglass insulation doesn't hold up very well in a moist environment. It'll get moldy and nasty, and some years later it'll drop down out and you'll have to rip it out and throw it away. So being that I had the foam, I'm like, we can skip around that, and since there's no plywood on here yet, it's not difficult to install these pieces, and there'll be a little board going up underneath, so they'll be protected. They don't need any cement board or anything. They just add that little bit of extra insulation, and once the plywood's on, they'll be kind of boxed in there. So just puttering today, getting a little bit done. I managed to get all this foam in on both sides. As far as the rafters go, you can't put it in ahead of time because you want your rafters to tie in reasonably tightly, and I'll have to do a little work around these window jambs, but again, that isn't too bad. I just used scraps of foam to fill. But anyway, that's where I'm at. Probably going to come up a little later. I'm going to shoot down and have a bite for breakfast shortly, and then I'll come up and lay out a few more rafters. This isn't a one-man job doing that part of it, so waiting till my brother Al comes back. He's just heading out on his vacation. I just came back from the summer cottage. My wife and I had a nice little break. Apart from the COVID, it was wonderful. The weather was beautiful. The water was about 85 up there, and it was just gorgeous. So here I am, puttering along to get a little more done, and then I'm going to lay out a bunch of rafters and maybe cut the ends so they're ready to go up. And then when Al gets back, probably next weekend, hopefully I'll be all done with the COVID program, and we can jump back on continuing the rafter frame. But anyway, wanted to say hi and just do a little catch up. I'm still here, and we're still moving ahead. Got a long way to go, so we got to keep at it. So anyway, hope you have a good week. Looks to be decent, not too hot, so I'll be in touch. Take care.